The Hall of Deliberation had never seen such a gathering. Built to hold the original council of 50 species, it now overflowed with representatives from 300 worlds. For the first time in 5,000 years, non-council members had been invited to speak, to vote, to decide the future of the galaxy. Ambassador Hai-Jin-Yoon stood at the center of it all. She was young for such responsibility, only 40 years old. But President Kang had chosen her for this moment, not for her experience, for her vision. Fellow beings of the galaxy, Hai-Jin began. Her voice carried to every corner of the vast hall. We gather not to judge the past, but to choose the future. The question before us is simple. What kind of galaxy do we want? Chairman Zefix sat in his traditional place, but his authority was gone. Around him sat council members who could no longer meet each other's eyes. Their secret was exposed. Their power was broken. The council acted to protect stability. The Saurian delegate insisted one last time. Without order, chaos reigns. Without control, destruction follows. Hai-Jin turned to him. You speak of control. Let me speak of cooperation. You value order. We value growth. You fear change. We embrace it. She activated a holographic display. Images filled the air. Humans and aliens working together. Medical teams fighting plagues. Engineers solving impossible problems. Teachers sharing knowledge. Farmers feeding worlds. This is what you voted to destroy, not because we're conquerors, but because we're catalysts. We don't just adapt to the galaxy. We help the galaxy adapt. We don't just solve our problems. We solve everyone's problems. The Altarian delegate stood. He had been one of 3 to vote against extinction. I call for a new vote, not about humanity's fate, about the council's future. Murmurs filled the hall. This was unprecedented. The council had existed for 5 millennia. Its structure unchanged, its power absolute. An elder from the Outer Rim Coalition rose. Her species had never been allowed council membership. Too young, they were told, too primitive. Now she spoke. For billions, the old way is finished. Secret votes, hidden agendas, decisions made by few that affect many. We propose a new charter, open sessions, equal representation. No species marked for extinction without public trial. And who would lead this new order? Zefix asked bitterly. Humans. Hai-Jin smiled. No, we would serve, not lead, as would all species. Leadership by rotation, decisions by consensus. Power shared, not hoarded. The debate lasted 3 days. Ancient treaties were examined. New proposals were drafted. Some council members fought to preserve their authority. Others, seeing the inevitable, joined the reform movement. On the 3rd day, the Celestini called Echo appeared. The ancient being rarely involved itself in politics. Its presence meant something momentous was happening. The first ones left us a message. Echo announced, to be opened when the galaxy reached a turning point. That time is now. A hologram appeared, the being of impossible beauty and age. Its message was simple. To our children's children's children. We built the council to preserve peace. But preservation is not growth. Peace is not stagnation. When new voices arise, listen. When change comes, embrace it. When fear divides, let hope unite. The galaxy is ready for its next chapter. The message faded. Silence filled the hall. Then, voting began. The old council structure, dissolved by overwhelming majority. The new Galactic Assembly, approved with only 12 dissenting votes. The extinction order against humanity, revoked unanimously. As the results were announced, something extraordinary happened. Species that had been enemies for centuries stood together. Traders and warriors, scientists and mystics, organic and artificial minds united in purpose. Chairman Zefix rose for his final statement as council leader. He looked older, tired, defeated, but perhaps also relieved. We were wrong, he said. Simply, we let fear guide us. We forgot that diversity is strength. We forgot that change is life. May this new assembly learn from our failures. He stepped down. The council of 5,000 years was ended 6 months later. Jin Woo-Baek stood before the first session of the Galactic Assembly. The human engineer had been elected as its inaugural speaker, not because humans had demanded it, because 300 species had nominated him. He looked out at the assembly. Every seat was filled, every species represented. The hall buzzed with energy, with possibility, with hope. Friends, he began. The word carried meaning, not subjects, not subordinates. Friends, we start a new chapter today, not human dominance, not council control, but true partnership. He activated a display showing the new structure, rotating, leadership, transparent decisions, open debates, regional assemblies, equal voice for all. The old council feared humanity would conquer the galaxy. They were wrong. We don't want to rule. We want to build. Not empires, but bridges, not weapons, but solutions, not alone, but together. In the gallery, former Ambassador Jae-won Kim watched with satisfaction. His leak had nearly cost him everything. Career ended, reputation destroyed, but it had saved humanity. More than that, it had transformed the galaxy. Beside him sat Haran Park, now promoted to full ambassador. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. Breaking protocol, ending my career, risking everything? Jae-won smiled, not for a second. On Earth, President Min Ji-king addressed humanity one last time. Before stepping down, the crisis had aged her, but her eyes were bright with pride. We faced extinction. We found hope. We were marked for death. We chose life. Not just for ourselves, for all who would stand with us. Today, humanity takes its place not as conquerors, but as partners in a galaxy reborn across human space. Colonies that had prepared for war now prepared for peace. Defense fleets became exploration vessels. Military bases became research stations. Fear became friendship. The Sentinels, ancient guardians who had protected Earth, sent their final message before returning to dormancy. The test is passed. The vigil ends. The future is yours to write. In the depths of space, the machine collective, calculated probability matrices, all showed the same result. The galaxy would change, grow, evolve. The static perfection of the old order would give way to dynamic progress. On border worlds, species that had never cooperated began joint projects. The void-touched emerged fully from their isolation. The free traders expanded their roots. The independent systems joined the mainstream of galactic civilization. And humans did what they did best. They adapted. They solved problems. They built bridges between species that had been separated for millennia. They shared knowledge freely. They faced challenges with optimism. They turned former enemies into allies. The council had voted in secret to erase humanity. They had failed, not because humans were stronger, but because the galaxy was ready for change, ready for growth, ready for hope. In the Hall of Deliberation, now renamed the Hall of Unity, a plaque was installed. It bore a simple inscription. Here ended the age of fear. Here began the age of cooperation. May we never forget the lesson. In diversity lies strength. In unity lies hope. In courage lies the future. The stars beckoned, and for the first time in 5,000 years, all species would explore them together. The secret vote had failed. The galaxy had chosen, and its choice was hope. Captain Choi Tae-jun stood on the bridge of the cargo vessel Soul's Pride, watching his crew work with perfect efficiency. The ship floated near Titan Station, one of the biggest trading posts in the galaxy. Through the viewport, he could see dozens of other human ships arriving every minute. Captain, we're receiving the signal, his communications officer reported. It's confirmed. Operation Silent Exodus is active. Tae-jun nodded. He had been waiting for this moment, though part of him had hoped it wouldn't come. Send confirmation to all human vessels in the sector. Begin immediate withdrawal procedures across the galaxy. The same scene played out on thousands of human ships. The aliens working alongside humans watched in confusion as their colleagues suddenly began packing up their stations. On Titan Station, Merchant Yoon Meek-young supervised the loading of the last cargo containers onto her freighter. Her alien business partners gathered around her, their various appendages waving in distress. Meek-young, what is happening? Asked Grix, a reptilian trader she had worked with for 5 years. Why are all humans leaving? Meek-young sealed the final container and turned to face them. The Galactic Council has made its decision. Earth has made ours, but our contracts, our agreements. The Kelthani merchant protested, his tentacles turning pale blue with anxiety. All human contracts are terminated as of this moment. Meek-young said calmly, Earth is withdrawing from all galactic affairs. The station administrator, a tall prism named Vertex, hurried over. His crystalline body flashed angry red patterns. This is impossible. Humans operate 60% of this station's systems. You manage our traffic control, our life support coordination, are not anymore. Meek-young interrupted. She handed him a data crystal. This contains basic operation manuals for all systems. You'll need to find new operators. You can't just leave. Vertex's light patterns became frantic. The station will fall apart. Meek-young paused at her ships. Airlock. Around them, human workers streamed toward the docking bays, carrying their belongings. The alien staff watched helplessly as their human colleagues departed. That's no longer our concern. Mi-kyung said. You wanted us isolated. Consider your wish granted. As her ship undocked, she watched Titan Station shrink in the rear viewport. Already, she could see the first signs of confusion, ships clustering too close together without human traffic controllers to guide them. Lights flickering as power systems struggled without human engineers to balance the load. Meanwhile, in the outer rim of human space, Commander Oh Kyung-ho stood in the control center of Barrier Station Alpha. The facility was one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets. Built in the year before the Council's ultimatum, all stations report ready, his operations officer announced. Graviton field generators are online. Kyung-ho looked at the massive display showing human space, every planet, moon, and station that belonged to Earth. In a few moments, they would all be sealed away from the rest of the galaxy. Begin activation sequence, he ordered. Round the borders of human territory, dozens of hidden stations came to life. Massive generators, each the size of a small moon, began to hum with power. They created a field that bent space itself, making it impossible for any ship to enter or leave human space without permission. The technology was beyond anything the aliens had imagined humans possessed. While they had worried about quantum jump drives, humanity had quietly developed something far more powerful. Back in alien space, the withdrawal continued. On Research Station Omega, human scientists packed up decades of work. On Mining Colony 7, human operators shut down the automated systems they had designed. On the agricultural worlds of the Saurian Empire, human advisors boarded the last evacuation ships. Dr. Park Sung-ho was one of the last humans to leave the joint medical facility on Kepler 44b. He had spent 10 years there, working alongside alien doctors to cure diseases that affected multiple species. His Saurian colleague, Dr. Sirish, watched him pack with obvious distress. Sung-ho, please. The plague samples we've been studying without your expertise. We won't be able to continue the research. Sung-ho closed his final case. I'm sorry, Sirish, but Earth has recalled all citizens. The Council's decision affects everything. But this isn't politics, this is medicine. Lives are at stake. Lives were at stake when the Council voted to. Sung-ho replied quietly. They chose politics over partnership. Now we all live with the consequences. As human ships departed from every corner of the galaxy, the aliens began to realize the true scope of what was happening. Humans hadn't just been traders or scientists or engineers. They had been the connective tissue holding many systems together. On the Vorthik homeworld, military commanders discovered their logistics networks failing. The algorithms managing their supply chains, algorithms they had never realized, where human design stopped updating. In the Kelthani feeding stations, food processors began breaking down. The human technicians who had maintained them for decades were gone, and no one else understood the hybrid technology. The prisms found their weather control systems drifting out of calibration. Human meteorologists had always made the tiny adjustments needed to keep the system stable. Ambassador Zeter stood in his office, reading report after report of systems failures. His assistant, Zekamar, entered with another stack of urgent messages. Supreme Ambassador, the humans have activated some kind of barrier around their space. Our probes can't penetrate it. Impossible. Zeter clicked. No species has such technology. The evidence suggests otherwise. Also, the trade station at Vega has lost orbit. Without human navigation computers, enough. Zeter's shell darkened with anger. They'll come back. They need us as much as we need them. But the reports kept coming. Space stations struggled to maintain orbit. Trade routes became dangerous without human navigators. Diplomatic crises erupted as human mediators vanished. Admiral Lee Dong-wook watched the final human ship cross into Earth space. The barrier sealed behind it, cutting off humanity from the rest of the galaxy. All personnel accounted for, his aide reported. Operation Silent Exodus is complete. Lee nodded, looking at the tactical display. Beyond the barrier, he could see alien ships gathering, trying to find a way through. They would fail. The graviton field was absolute, and so it begins, Lee said quietly. Humanity stands alone. His bridge crew looked uncertain. A young officer asked, Admiral, was this the right choice, cutting ourselves off from everyone? Lee turned to face his crew. They gave us no choice. They demanded our freedom or our isolation. We chose to be free. But sir, the economic impact will be significant. Lee agreed, for them and for us. But we'll adapt. We always have. Outside the barrier, the alien fleets continued to gather. They sent messages, demands, pleas, threats. All went unanswered. The Galaxy had pushed humanity away from the table. Now humanity had built a wall around their home, and the galaxy was beginning to understand what they had lost. 3 months had passed since humanity disappeared behind their barrier. The Galactic Council chamber felt different now. The empty seats where human representatives once sat seemed to stare at the other delegates like accusing eyes. Speaker Vex High called the session to order, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. His scales, once bright silver, had dulled to gray. The stress showed on every alien face in the chamber. The economic report, Vex High announced warily. Counselor Thekov. The Trade Commission stood up. The small, furry being usually bounced with energy. Now he moved slowly, as if carrying a great weight. The situation continues to deteriorate. That began without human traders. 17 major trade routes have collapsed. The Vegan corridor is completely impassable. Ships drift there without navigation support. 30 vessels have been lost trying to cross it. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Zichter shifted uncomfortably in his seat, that continued reading from his datapad. Food shortages affect 40% of Council worlds. Human agricultural advisors managed most of our efficient farming systems. Without them, crop yields have fallen dramatically. The Kelthani are starving, Ambassador Thrun added, his tentacles drooping. Our metabolism requires precise nutritional balance. Human biochemists always handled our food processing. Now our people grow sick. The Saurian delegate stood next. Medical crisis spreads through our systems. 3 plagues advance unchecked. Human researchers were close to cures, but their work disappeared with them. Each report painted a darker picture. Manufacturing output had dropped by half. Spaceport accidents had tripled. Diplomatic conflicts erupted daily, without human mediators. To calm tensions, enough reports, Speaker Vexhai said. We know the situation. The question is, what do we do about it? Send military force, suggested the warrior prime of Vorthan. Break their barrier. Admiral Zak of the Combined Fleet shook his head. We've tried. 12 assault groups have attempted to penetrate the barrier. All failed. The field doesn't just stop ships, it bends space itself. Our best scientists can't even understand how it works. Then we increase communication attempts, proposed another delegate. 742 messages sent, reported the communications ministry. 0 responses. The humans maintain complete silence. Professor Huang Jason of Kepler University stood up. The elderly alien's feathers had turned white with age, and her voice carried the weight of wisdom. She was one of the few non-humans who had truly studied human nature. You still don't understand, she said quietly. Understand what? Zichter demanded. Why they left. Why they won't answer. Huang moved to the center of the chamber. For decades, I studied human integration patterns. They didn't just participate. In our civilization, they optimized it. Every system they touched became more efficient. So, Zichter clicked impatiently, so we became dependent without realizing it. Humans filled gaps we didn't know existed. They solved problems before we recognized them. They connected species that couldn't communicate. They were the oil in our vast machine. You speak of them like they're superior beings, scoffed a Prism delegate. Not superior. Different, adaptive. Humans see patterns others miss. They solve problems through unusual angles. Most importantly, they cooperate through competition, a paradox other species never mastered. Huang projected data onto the central display. Look at the numbers. Before humans joined the council, technological advancement was linear. After their arrival, it became exponential. Before humans, we had 17 wars per decade. After, we had 2. They were manipulating us. Zichter stood, his shell darkening with anger. No, they were helping us. But we saw their adaptability as a threat, their innovation as danger, their success as suspicious. Wang's feathers ruffled, so we pushed them away. And now we learn what we truly lost. In the Andromeda sector, 2 species faced each other across a disputed border. The Morvik and the Zentran had argued over mineral rights for months, without human negotiators. The argument escalated. Morvik Fleet Commander Grotz prepared his weapons. Zentran Admiral Clay did the same. Both remembered similar disputes years ago, resolved in hours by human diplomats who found solutions neither side had considered. Now, those diplomats were gone. The fleets powered up their weapons. Back in the council chamber, an emergency alert interrupted the debate. Military crisis in Andromeda sector. Morvik and Zentran forces engaging. The chamber erupted in panic. Without human crisis managers, the council struggled to respond. Messages flew back and forth. but neither side would listen to alien mediators. They didn't trust. Meanwhile, inside human space, the picture was very different. Earth's cities hummed with activity. Research stations produced breakthrough after breakthrough, without alien bureaucracy slowing them down. Human scientists worked at incredible speed. Engineer Kang Da-yoon stood in her laboratory, studying the prototype before her. The device was smaller than her hand, but contained more computing power than most alien dreadnoughts. Quantum processing efficiency at 300% standard. Her assistant reported. The aliens said this was theoretically impossible. Da-yoon smiled. They said many things were impossible. Jump drives, graviton barriers, neural interfaces. They confused impossible with something we haven't tried yet. Across human space, similar scenes played out, free from council restrictions. Humanity unleashed its full innovative potential. New technologies emerged monthly. Problems that had stumped the galaxy for centuries found solutions. Captain Bai Hyun-woo led his exploration vessel through dimensions the aliens didn't know existed. His crew charted new realities, found resources beyond imagination, pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Back in council space, the war spread. The Morvic-Zenthran conflict triggered other disputes. Species that had grudgingly cooperated under human mediation now turned on each other. The Vorthic Empire itself faced rebellion. 3 client species rose up, emboldened by the chaos. Without human logistics managing their military, the Vorthic struggled to respond effectively. This is catastrophe, Speaker Vexhai said, reading the latest reports. 12 conflicts now burn across council space. Trade has dropped to emergency levels. Multiple planets face starvation or plague, all since the humans left. Professor Huang noted quietly. Do not blame us for this chaos, Ziegler snarled. The humans abandoned their responsibilities. No, Huang replied. We abandoned our partnership with them. We demanded they surrender their achievements. We threatened them with isolation. They simply accepted our terms. The council chamber fell silent. Outside, more emergency alerts flashed. Another trade station failed. Another diplomatic crisis erupted. Another system called desperately for help that wouldn't come. Finally, Vexhai spoke. We must ask them to return. They won't listen, Ziegler protested. Then we must try harder. Vexhai's scales shifted to deep blue, the color of desperation. Prepare a formal apology. Full council authorization. Beg if we must. The vote was unanimous. Even Ziegler, faced with his empire's crumbling logistics, agreed. As they prepared their message of apology and pleading, none of them knew that humanity watched everything. The barrier was one way. Humans could see out, even if aliens couldn't. See, and Admiral Lee Dong-wook reviewed the intelligence reports with his staff. They're finally realizing. His aide commented. Lee nodded slowly. The question is, have they learned enough? The galaxy had discovered the price of pushing humanity away from the table, but whether that lesson would lead to real change remained to be seen. 1 year had passed since humanity's withdrawal. The Galactic Council chamber looked like a shadow of its former self. Several seats sat empty, species that had collapsed or withdrawn from the failing alliance. The remaining delegates looked exhausted, their various forms showing signs of stress and desperation. Ambassador Ziegler of the Vorthic Imperium no longer stood tall. His once gleaming shell had grown dull, and cracks showed where stress had weakened his natural armor. His compound eyes, which once blazed with authority, now darted nervously around the chamber. Speaker Vexhai called the emergency session to order. His scales flickered through worried patterns as he spoke. We've faced the gravest crisis in council history. Ambassador Ziegler, your report on the Vorthic situation. Ziegler stood slowly, as if the weight of his failures pressed down on him. The Vorthic Imperium has lost control of 7 star systems. Our military logistics continue to fail. Without human-designed algorithms, our forces cannot coordinate effectively. The other delegates listened in stunned silence. The mighty Vorthic, who had led the charge against humanity, now admitted their own empire was crumbling. Our food distribution networks have collapsed. Ziegler continued. Rebellion spreads through our outer territories. We lack the organizational capability to respond to multiple crises simultaneously. Perhaps, said the Kelthani ambassador, his tentacles writhing with suppressed anger. You should have considered this before demanding humanity's isolation. We all voted for it, Ziegler snapped back. Don't pretend you weren't eager to control human technology. Enough, Vexhai's voice boomed. Fighting amongst ourselves solves nothing. We must focus on the immediate crisis. The Saurian delegate stood next, her reptilian features drawn with worry. The plague has reached critical levels. 20 billion Saurians are infected. Our death rate climbs daily. Without human medical researchers, we cannot develop a cure. Another delegate reported. Massive industrial failures. Without human engineers, maintenance backlogs had reached critical levels. Factories shut down. Shipyards closed. The galactic economy teetered on the edge of complete collapse. The humans will return, a voice said weakly. It was Counselor Vreen. Once the most optimistic member, they must. They need us as much as we need them. Professor Huang Jason shook her feathered head. You still don't understand. Look at the long-range scanner data. She activated the central display. It showed the energy signatures from human space massive power outputs. That dwarfed anything the Council had seen before. They're not suffering in isolation. They're thriving, free from our restrictions. They advance at rates we never imagined possible. They've likely surpassed our technology by decades in just 1 year. Impossible, muttered several delegates. Is it? Huang asked. We spent so much time fearing human ambition that we never recognized their true nature. They don't just adapt to challenges, they transform them into opportunities. The breaking point came when the latest casualty reports arrived. The Saurian plague had jumped species, now affecting 3 other races. Medical systems across the galaxy failed to cope, 40 billion lives at risk. The medical coordinator reported. Without immediate intervention, deaths could reach hundreds of billions. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Speaker Vexhai spoke. We have no choice. We must formally apologize to Earth and beg for their return. The vote was unanimous. Even the proudest species swallowed their pride in the face of extinction. They prepared their most humble message, crafted by their finest diplomats. The graviton barrier briefly flickered open just enough to admit a single envoy ship. Ambassador Kim Ji-woo, now holding the title of Earth's Prime Coordinator, met them on Harmony Station, just inside human space. The alien envoys gasped when they saw the station. It was a marvel of engineering that shouldn't have been possible, a structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The lead envoy, a elder prism named Radiance, spoke first. Prime Coordinator Kim, we come with our deepest apologies. The Galactic Council was wrong. We acted from fear and pride. Kim's expression remained neutral as she listened. The galaxy suffers without humanity. Radiance continued. Wars rage. Plague spread. Billions face death. We beg your return to the Council. Name your terms. We will accept anything. Kim studied them for a long moment before speaking. You say you were wrong. What exactly were you wrong about? The envoys glanced at each other uncertainly. Zeekter's representative spoke up. We were wrong to demand your technology. Wrong to threaten you with isolation. No, Kim said quietly. You were wrong about something much more fundamental. You saw humanity as a threat to be controlled rather than a partner to be valued. You viewed our innovations as dangerous rather than gifts. You treated our success as something suspicious rather than celebrating it. She stood and walked to the window overlooking human space. Ships moved in perfect coordination, using technologies that made alien vessels look primitive. The Saurians face a plague, Kim said. 20 billion infected, you say? Yes, the Saurian envoy said desperately. Our people die by the millions each day. Kim touched a control panel. A hologram appeared showing complex molecular structures. Human researchers solved that plague 6 months ago. We developed the cure in weeks, but we solved it for humanity, not for the galaxy that rejected us. The envoy stared at her in shock. You have the cure? Radiance asked. We have many things. Cures for diseases, solutions to conflicts, technologies beyond your imagination. But Earth is no longer part of your council. These advances belong to humanity alone. Please, the Saurian envoy begged. Billions will die. Kim's expression softened slightly. We are not monsters, but neither are we servants. You wanted humanity isolated and controlled. Instead, you isolated yourselves from our potential. What do you want? Zeekter's representative asked. What price for your return? There is no price, Kim replied, because we won't return. Not to the old system. The Galactic Council, as you know, it is finished. The envoys looked stricken. Then, there's no hope. Kim turned back to face them. There is always hope, but it requires change, real change. The galaxy must learn to see humanity not as subjects to be controlled, but as equals to be respected. We'll change, Radiance promised. The Council will reform. The Council had its chance. It chose fear over friendship, control over cooperation. Now it faces the consequences. As the envoys prepared to leave, Kim added, tell the galaxy this. We watch, we see your suffering. When you truly understand what partnership means, not domination, not control, but genuine cooperation, perhaps then we can talk about a new relationship. The envoy ship departed, carrying back news that shook the galaxy further. Humanity had advanced beyond their wildest dreams. They had solutions to every crisis, but they would not return to the old ways. In the council chamber, panic reigned. Some called for military action, others for complete surrender. A few, like Professor Huang, argued for patience and genuine change. They gave us a path forward, Huang told the assembly. Not submission, not return to the old ways, but a chance to build something new. The question is, are we wise enough to take it? The galaxy had tried to put humanity in a box. Instead, humanity had transformed the box into a launching pad to heights the galaxy could barely imagine. And now, the aliens faced their hardest challenge yet, changing themselves. 5 years had passed since humanity abandoned the table. The galaxy looked very different now. The old Galactic Council existed only in name, broken into dozens of smaller alliances. Some thrived, learning to work together without human help. Others struggled, clinging to old prejudices and failing systems. On the bridge of the battlecruiser New Horizon, Admiral Li Dongwook studied the tactical display. After 5 years, humanity was ready to re-engage with the galaxy, but on completely different terms. Admiral, his communications officer reported. The graviton barrier is ready to deactivate on your command. Li nodded slowly. The moment had finally come. Signal all ships. Operation Open Door begins now. Across human space, citizens watched their screens as the barrier that had protected them for 5 years began to fade. Scientists like Kang Dayun paused their work. Explorers like Captain Bai Haiyanwu turned their ships toward home. Humanity held its breath. The graviton field shimmered and died. For the first time in 5 years, human space opened to the galaxy. The reaction was immediate. Alien sensors detected the change within minutes. Ships of every species raced toward the former barrier, but they stopped in confusion when they saw what emerged. Human vessels poured out of their territory, but these were not the ships the galaxy remembered. They defied physics, moving in ways that seemed impossible. Their hulls shimmered with energy fields unknown to alien science. Some appeared to exist in multiple places at once. Admiral Li's flagship led the emergence. His ship was 3 times larger than any dreadnought the aliens had built, yet it moved with the grace of a fighter craft. It took position at the center of what had once been the barrier zone. Broadcast ready, Admiral, his communications officer announced. Li stood straight, his uniform crisp, his expression calm. Begin transmission. His image appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Aliens in homes, offices, and ships stopped what they were doing to watch. Citizens of the galaxy, Li began. 5 years ago, humanity withdrew from your society. You chose to isolate us, and we accepted that isolation. Today, we return, but we do not return as we were. Behind him, displays showed the advances humanity had made: cities that floated in space, energy sources that never depleted, medical technology that could cure any disease, ships that traveled between dimensions. We return not as members of your failed council, Li continued. We return as a sovereign civilization, ready to engage with those who seek genuine partnership. In the old council chamber, the remaining delegates watched in stunned silence. Speaker Vex High, his scales now permanently dulled with age and stress, whispered, "They've advanced beyond anything we imagined." Professor Huang Jae-sun smiled sadly. "They always had this potential. We were just too afraid to let them show it." Admiral Li's message continued. Humanity offers a new way forward. We will trade with those who trade fairly. We will share knowledge with those who share freely. We will help those who ask with respect. But we will never again submit to the control of others. Then came the announcement that shocked the galaxy most. "We know many of you suffer," Li said. "Plagues ravage the Saurian worlds. Wars tear apart the outer rim. Starvation threatens billions. We have solutions to these problems." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Beginning immediately, humanity opens relief stations at these coordinates." A list appeared on the screen. "Any species may come. We will cure diseases. We will provide food. We will offer sanctuary to refugees. We ask nothing in return except respect for our sovereignty." The response was chaos. Ships of every species raced toward the relief stations. The desperate came first: plague victims, war refugees, the starving masses. They found human medical ships waiting, curing diseases that had killed millions. Food stations provided sustenance. Peacekeepers offered protection. At Relief Station 7, Dr. Park Sung-ho worked alongside alien doctors again. A Saurian family arrived, all showing signs of the plague. The youngest, barely alive, was rushed to him. "Please," the parent begged. "Save my child." Sung-ho administered the cure humanity had developed. Within minutes, the child's breathing eased. Color returned to its scales. "Why?" the parent asked through tears of relief. "After what we did to you, why help us?" Sung-ho smiled gently. "Because that's what humans do. We solve problems. We help those in need. Your leader's mistakes don't make your child less worthy of life." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human solutions ended wars. Human technology rebuilt destroyed worlds. Human mediators resolved conflicts that had festered for years. But there were rules. When the Vorthic Empire demanded human military technology, they were refused. When some species tried to steal human advances, they found their ships gently, but firmly pushed back by force fields they couldn't understand. Ambassador Kim Ji-woo, still serving as prime coordinator, met with representatives from the various new alliances. They came not with demands but with respectful requests. "We've learned," said the new coalition speaker, once a minor species ignored by the old council. "Partnership means mutual respect. We offer our culture, our knowledge, our friendship. What we ask in return is the chance to grow alongside humanity." Kim smiled. "That's all we ever wanted." Over the following months, a new order emerged, not a single council ruling over all, but a network of partnerships. Species that treated humanity as equals found themselves advancing rapidly. Those that clung to old prejudices were left behind. The Kelthani, who embraced change, developed their own innovations with human guidance. The Prisms, who shared their knowledge freely, received human dimensional technology in return. Even some, Vorthic, breaking from their empire's stubborn pride, formed new colonies based on cooperation rather than conquest. At the edge of human space, captained by Hyunwoo, prepared for another exploration mission. His crew now included aliens, those who had proven themselves trustworthy partners. "New dimensions await," he told his mixed crew. "New challenges to overcome, new wonders to discover. Together, we'll go further than any single species could." Alone in her laboratory, Kang Da-yoon worked with Kelthani scientists on the next breakthrough. "Innovation comes from diversity," she explained to her alien colleagues. "Different perspectives seeing the same problem create solutions none of us could find alone." 1 year after humanity's return, the galaxy had transformed, not perfect, but healing. Not united under one rule, but connected through mutual respect. Professor Hwang Jae-sun, now very old, gave her final lecture at the rebuilt University of Galactic Studies. Humans and aliens filled the hall. "The great lesson of our time," she said, her voice still strong, "is that strength comes not from control but from cooperation. Not from fear but from trust. Humanity didn't abandon the table to punish us. They left to show us we needed a better table, one built on respect, not dominance." She looked out at her mixed audience. "They returned not as our superiors, though they had surpassed us, not as our controllers, though they had the power. They returned as what they always wanted to be, our partners." In the old council chamber, now a museum, children of many species learned about the time when fear nearly destroyed galactic civilization. They studied how humanity's withdrawal taught the galaxy its most important lesson. The table had been abandoned, but in its place, something far better had grown: a galaxy where different species sat as equals, where innovation was celebrated, not feared, where strength meant lifting others up, not holding them down. Humanity had transformed isolation into evolution. They had turned rejection into revolution, and in doing so, they had saved not just themselves but everyone willing to learn. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of pushing humanity away, because now they understood humanity's greatest power was not their technology or their adaptability. It was their ability to transform any challenge into an opportunity to grow, and their willingness to share that growth with others. The table was gone, but the future had never looked brighter.